The Denver Broncos will improve in 2023. With an experienced and elite head coach that is fantastic at manipulating talent, the Broncos project to be much better than 5-12. Yet, I'm a Broncos fan, and I'm here to tell you why the improvement won't be too significant. I'm Chase Keller, and tune into this dive of the Denver Broncos, why I believe they will finish 7-10, and how they came up at 19th in my 2023 NFL Power Rankings. A key point to the failure of the Denver Broncos in 2022 was the offensive coaching, specifically the play calling and authenticity of Nathaniel Hackett, who was fired before he could finish one season with Denver. And honestly, the more I look at the offensive talent, the more I realize that it was not the roster's fault and that it was Hackett's fault. And that's my reasoning for why Russell Wilson is starting to become overhated. Sure, Wilson had a down year in 2022 generally, seeing a massive decline in pass production by throwing only 16 touchdowns, but I have 3 reasons why that may be the only statistic going against him. Sure, he rarely scored in 2022, and that was primarily because of the offensive scheme, but his decision making was up to par with the rest of his career. You see, Wilson has always had a tendency to make bad throws, and it has actually improved since his Super Bowl days. And 2022 was no exception, as he had a turnover-worthy play percentage of only 2.6%. Another reason for his downfall in 2022 is the offensive scheme, which may sound like a basic answer, but let me explain. Not only was Wilson utilized as a pocket passer, his dropback percentage and play action significantly declined from 29% to 21%. When addressing this significant fall, as well as recognizing that Wilson was one of the best out-of-pocket passers before 2022, you can start to understand how fraudulent Hackett's West Coast offense was. And finally, without Hackett, Wilson played fairly well, completing 63% of his passes for 505 yards and 4 touchdowns, which is an impressive line among a 2-game stretch. So Wilson is a little bit overhated in my opinion, and a 79 overall is a fair rating. Yet it's nothing too special, and with Russell Wilson turning 35 mid-season, you can hope that his decline doesn't continue. Moving on to the running back room, we have a near-forgotten stud in third-year starter Javonte Williams, a guy who has played extremely well as a split-snap guy. He had nearly 1,000 yards as a rookie, along with breaking 63 tackles, which was second in the league behind Jonathan Taylor. Let's also note that Taylor was second in rushing attempts, while Javonte Williams was 18th. I listed Williams at a 78 overall solely based on the fact that he is elite at breaking tackles and speeding after contact. He's not the most athletic, but his acceleration is fantastic. He is very good at bouncing off tackles, and that's the best trait in some of the NFL's best, like Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry. The Broncos also signed Samaje Perine, and while it is a downgrade from Latavius Murray in my opinion, the 2-year, $7.5 million contract is fairly solid. Perine is a very good dual-threat back who showed great flashes in 2022. He had a 2-game stretch of 38 rushes for 164 yards and a touchdown, along with another touchdown in the game after that 2-game stretch. He showed to be great injury support for Joe Mixon, so who says he can't do the same for Javonte Williams? The wide receiver room is also underrated, with the combination of high upside pass catchers, wide receiver 1 talents, and career underrated talents. Leading this room is Jerry Jeudy, who is starting to become a little underrated. Jeudy is known for being a high upside receiver, but he actually showed a lot of that upside in 2022. He caught 68 passes for 987 yards and 6 touchdowns, which were all career highs. Then we have Courtland Sutton, who isn't great as a wide receiver 1, but he has proved his reliability in all but one season, the one season being the one where he tore his ACL. He has always been an elite deep threat, and knowing how great Wilson can be throwing the ball deep, Sutton also has elite potential. So it was down to Jeudy or Sutton for the first person who receives a breakout grade on this Denver roster, and with Sutton matching Wilson's game so well, I'm going to have to give Sutton the breakout grade number 1. There's also Tim Patrick, who tore his ACL in 2022, matching with Jerry Jeudy's in 2021 and Sutton's in 2020. Yet he's been quite the underrated receiver throughout his career. He went undrafted in 2017, and since then, he's put together several reliable seasons. Of course, the torn ACL may hold him back, but Jeudy and Sutton both recovered from theirs pretty well. The Broncos have many other receivers that make this room very good, including KJ Hamler, Marquez Callaway, and newly drafted wide receiver Marvin Mims Jr. The tight end room is consistent, yet nothing special. I'm projecting Greg Dulcich to be the tight end 1 this season, but with my rating system, he falls back to tight end 2, with Denver trading for former Saints tight end Adam Troutman. I was very high on Troutman for the 2020 NFL Draft, high enough where I had him at a 70 overall to start his career. And sure, he may not be flashy as a receiver, but he's a damn good blocker. And that offsets with the solid receiving ability of now second-year tight end Greg Dulcich. He started at a 68 overall last season, and his ability to create opportunities in the deep game elevated him to a 72. His blocking ability was absolutely atrocious, but I noted that for him when he came into the league as a prospect. I'm not expecting that to improve, but I am expecting his receiving to continue going upward. I feel bad for Alberto, as his 2021 season was actually very good. I had him at a 74 overall heading into the 2022 season, and while he did suffer from some injuries, he barely played because of the bloom of Dulcich. Even Eric Tomlinson and Eric Saubert outperformed him in terms of snaps in 2022. His decline will likely continue, but I still feel very bad for him. The offensive line drastically improved over the offseason, but it's still not sitting at anything better than average. The exterior line is one of the best in the entire league, but the inside isn't anything special. I'm going to start with the position that Denver forgot to address, and that is the center. Cushenberry has proved nothing big in his first 3 seasons with Denver, and he even lost a bunch of snaps in 2022 due to a groin injury. He's projected to be back in the starting center role for the 4th straight season, which makes it easy to see that Denver hasn't looked to replace him. He is a solid pass blocker, but his run blocking isn't great at all. In Sean Payton's scheme, he will need to improve in the run blocking aspect. The rest of the line is fairly good. The exterior line consisting of Garrett Bowles and new signing Mike McGlinchey brings a good set of pass blockers to help Javonte Williams spread into more zone run opportunities. McGlinchey was a little bit of an overpay, and I don't think his pass blocking is particularly going to help Wilson. Yet, with Garrett Bowles being a great pass blocker on the left side, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. They also signed guard Ben Powers, a high upside guard who had his best career season in 2022. I don't think he's done too much yet, but he does receive the team's 2nd breakout grade. He was a phenomenal pass blocker last season, as he allowed 13 pressures and 1 sack in 633 snaps. On the opposite end, rising D3 stud Quinn Miners leads the interior offensive line as the best blocker. Not only is he a good pass blocker, his run blocking took massive leaps, and he has the upside of a top 5 run blocker for next season. To summarize, this offense isn't great, but it is going to improve in a better scheme. After looking at the offensive talent on the roster, it is clear that Nathaniel Hackett was the thing holding them back. So now, time for the defense. Despite the team going 5-12, the defense was extremely bright in 2022. If you watched my latest video on the Carolina Panthers, you would know that I love new coordinator Ejiro Evero, who was the Denver Broncos defensive coordinator in 2022. He helped elevate guys like Baron Browning, Caden Stearns, and Deshaun Williams to worthy starting roles. Despite a decline in the defensive coordinator, the defense still has great talent. The defensive line is the worst part of this defense, yet it's not terrible. The edge rushers stand at an under average grade, and it's primarily because the player rankings completely changed within 1 season. Randy Gregory still stands at a 78 overall, but I was expecting much higher for this season, and I actually think he may continue to fall. Gregory was efficient in 2022, but he dealt with both injuries and character issues, leading him to play only 187 snaps. Gregory has also fallen off a little bit in terms of respect from Broncos fans, so I'm hoping that he can make a recovery for the 2023 season. The signing of Frank Clark is a very solid one for Denver, as they now get a 2nd edge that is worthy of starting. Clark hasn't had more than 6 sacks since 2019, but he consistently wraps up a good amount of pressures. And if Denver can make the playoffs, the league is in trouble. Baron Browning is someone I can discuss more about, especially since he received breakout grade number 2 on this roster. Browning has been decent for the 2 seasons that he has been on the roster, and he switched from linebacker to edge going into year 2. The 38 pressures and 284 pass rush snaps proved the switch to be worth it. Browning needs to see more alignment versatility in 2023, given that he's been successful at both linebacker and edge. I'm expecting 50+ pressures and more coverage snaps from Browning this upcoming season. The interior is the reason for this underwhelming defensive line. Just like the edge group, the position made improvements this offseason, but it's still nothing too good. DJ Jones kicks off this positional group, and in a time where defense was the only bright spot on the team, Jones actually took a step backwards. Jones' best trait is his run defense, but he actually struggled to wrap up opposing backs in 2022, missing 16.2% of his tackles. He fell backwards by 3 overall points, and hopefully that's where it stops for the young defensive tackle. The second pickup of the D-line came with Zach Allen, a guy with high upside for seasons to come. He had his best season in 2022, and he actually gets to keep working with Vance Joseph, who was the defensive coordinator with him while he was in Arizona. He's an all-around good defender, but he's only had one great season. The development should continue though. The rest of the defensive line is nothing special, with the final 3 guys being 32-year-old veteran Mike Purcell, 2022 4th-round pick, and 2022 6th-round pick Matt Henningsen. The positional group ratings improve with the above-average linebacker core. Now, I may be biased, but this linebacker core may be the most underrated in the NFL. And it starts with one of the most underrated linebacker number 1s in Josie Jewell. Jewell's 2022 season was a little weird, given that going into it, his best trait was easily coverage. The rest of his skill set was either average or under average. Yet, 2022 flipped the script, and in a lackluster coverage year, he had a great year in run defense. He made 40 stops in 2022, which was tied for 52nd in the NFL. Only 2 linebackers above him played less snaps, including Chiefs Willie Gay Jr. and fellow teammate Alex Singleton. Singleton was extremely underrated in 2022, and 2023 could mean big things for him. The only thing I didn't like about Singleton was that he took steps backwards in coverage, and he was actually more of a hole on passing situations. Yet, the run defense should be enough to elevate him to great linebacker status. The draft selection of Drew Sanders brings even more versatility to this defense. Sanders was immaculate everywhere he played in college, and I'm excited to see exactly where he plays. I have an idea. When the second string defense is out, how about you just flip Baron Browning and Drew Sanders on the D-line and on the linebacker core? Anyways, this cornerback room is phenomenal, and it's hard to not be when Patrick Surtain is your cornerback 1. Even then, the backups in depth bring validity to this room. Surtain is obviously first up. While he is not ranked as my number 1 corner, he is ranked that way on many lists. He was targeted only 69 times in 2022, allowing 41 receptions for only 417 yards. He also broke up 7 passes and picked off the ball twice. It's not ridiculous to call Surtain the NFL's best. He was actually better in 2021 in terms of coverage, but in 2022, he grew his run support heavily as well. K'Waun Williams is a fantastic cornerback too as well, and while he's more of a nickel corner, he still has value on the outside. He actually had a fantastic coverage year in 2022, allowing 69.1% of his targets to be caught, which was his lowest since 2015. That number seems to be even better when you note that he played a lot of his snaps in the slot while in zone coverage. Damari Mathis has had a good start to his career, moving up 4 overall points since being drafted in the 2022 NFL Draft. While he was a little bit grabby, he did deflect 6 passes compared to allowing only 2 touchdowns. Mathis has high upside as a coverage corner, with the potential to be the new cornerback number 2 if K'Waun Williams continues to age. They also drafted Riley Moss in the 3rd round, a draft selection that I was not a fan of. I had a 7th round grade on him, and I don't think the positional need was particularly there. Nonetheless, it wasn't an awful selection. The safety room is another very good positional group, making the secondary one of the deadliest in the NFL. Justin Simmons is another guy who can be debated as the best in his group, and while he may be starting to slow faster than normal, he is still a top-tier safety. He has picked off at least 5 passes in his last 3 seasons, and he is also very good at containing the yards after the catch. His run support has taken big steps back, but he does work better as a deep safety anyways. Caden Stearns is my third and final breakout grade on this roster for a couple of reasons. First, he is projected to start after being the first safety off the bench for his first 2 seasons. In those 2 seasons, he has put together productivity, especially in season 2 where he allowed only 4 of 11 targets with 2 interceptions and 2 pass breakups. The second reason involves safety number 3 Kareem Jackson, who Denver was hesitant on signing for this upcoming season. The last couple of seasons have been underwhelming for the now 35-year-old safety, but he will still fit in well as the 3rd safety on this roster. That goes without mentioning a massive draft steal in Boise State prospect J.L. Skinner. Skinner was my number 8 safety in this class, and he ended up being the 13th selected. He brings great deep safety ability for the Broncos, and he also brings elite run support as well. He may be recovering from a torn ACL, but he has high upside. To summarize, this defense is still a top 10 defense despite absolutely downgrading at defensive coordinator. This roster is stacked with both veteran talent and high upside youngsters to help elevate this defense to number 1. So, how good is the coaching? The coaching staff saw massive changes for this season, as each of the top 3 changed this offseason. Whether it was an upgrade for the most important of the 3 or a downgrade for the least important, the staff ended up making strides this offseason. I think we can all agree that the jump from Nathaniel Hackett to Sean Payton at head coach is a fantastic one. Payton is a sure Hall of Fame coach who went 152 wins and 89 losses as the New Orleans Saints head coach. In a new age of Denver Broncos football, he is going to pound the ball as much as possible and have a formerly reliable quarterback by his side in unfavorable situations. Given the offensive talent of this roster, I'm expecting the Broncos to make massive strides for scoring offense in 2023. Javonte Williams as the RB1 is really good. Besides, he helped develop talents like Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. Even outside of the rushing, the top tier receiving targets for Wilson include Sutton, Judy, Patrick, and Dulcich, which should give a good layback for the offense if needed. So basically, with Sean Payton running the offense now, everyone should expect big improvements from the offense. Alongside Payton on the offense is new offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi, who was a hiring that I actually heavily disagreed with. While his Chargers offenses were high yardage ones, having talents like Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams should bring higher results than 9th place. The biggest knock from Chargers fans is that he didn't show up in high-stake games, or even stints in the playoffs, where the offense scored 3 points while in progress of blowing a 27-0 lead in the 2022 playoffs. Besides, leading up to his Chargers offensive coordinator stint, he failed a stint with the Lions and helped an aging Drew Brees stay relevant while being quarterbacks coach in New Orleans. I guess that's the positive of the hiring. He's actually worked with Sean Payton for 12 seasons now. Yet, I'm not impressed enough to justify him being the offensive coordinator. It's hard to upgrade a defensive coordinator when you lose the best in the game with Ejiro Evero. Yet, the replacement was a big downgrade, as the declining Vance Joseph may be past his top-tier coaching days. While this signing may make some sense given that he was Denver's head coach from 2017 to 2018, his ability to help develop a defense has somewhat fallen off. The statistics show for themselves, as while Arizona's defensive talent wasn't great, they ranked 31st in points allowed with Joseph at defensive coordinator last season. To be fair, his defenses performed well in 2020 and 2021, but they should have performed a lot better and more consistent with Vance Joseph at defensive coordinator. To summarize, the offense should see heavy improvements heading into the 2023 season. Yet, the coordinator hirings make this coaching staff a little more concerning than it should be. Now, let's go into the final ratings. Before I end the video, I want to go over the rating splits for the 2023 Denver Broncos. If you are interested in how these splits work, I do have them in the description below. The offense came out at a 75.25, which is 19th in the NFL, 12th in the AFC, and 4th in the AFC West. The defense came out at a 74.97, which is 9th in the NFL, 6th in the AFC, and 2nd in the AFC West. The special teams came out at a 66.39, which is dead last in the NFL. And coaching came out at a 77, which is tied for 16th in the NFL, tied for 9th in the AFC, and 2nd in the AFC West. As an overall team, they came out at a 75.11, which is 19th in the NFL, 12th in the AFC, and 3rd in the AFC West. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I have 18 more teams to talk about, so you're missing out. Once again, I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and thank you guys so much for choosing this channel as your source of sports coverage. I'll see you guys in the next video.